Char's Counterattack is quite a divisive entry amongst the Gundam fanbase. I'd firmly argue for it being an excellent work that perfectly conveys or encapsulates the core aspects that make Gundam iconic, and provides a satisfying end to Amuro and Char's rivalry, with some points of criticism against it being honestly very unwarranted or outright lacking in any objectivity or in-depth thought. For instance, people saying, "Oh, Quest is a bad character because she's annoying," failing to realise that there's a difference between a character being written to be intentionally annoying and those who are annoying through bad writing, or not bothering to take into account her background that leads to her characterisation. Of the many subtle details people have pointed out within the film though, one that hasn't received much analysis is the Swan symbolism surrounding Lalah Sune in flashbacks and visions, which is quite surprising with how fitting it is with her character. The first source to look at is Hinduism. This should be quite obvious with how Lalah's design shows she's likely of a Hindu background, as well as how ideas of Hinduism such as the bindi representing high levels of consciousness through the 6th chakra fits with how her new type abilities manifest as being a true empath and able to form profound emotional or spiritual connections with fellow new types such as Amuro and Char. This ties into the Swan imagery, with the Swan often being identified as a Hindu mythical being known as a Hamsa, which represents spiritual wisdom. It is also treated as a messenger to connect two strangers within the epic the Ramayana, much as Lalah becomes the connecting thread which brings Amuro and Char from simple rivals in a war to eternally connected. They are also associated with the god of destruction Shiva, and his wife Parvati can allow one to prosper in life through venerating them, and that slaying these pure creatures would curse those responsible. All this can be seen with Lalah, with her sacrifice against Amuro to save Char, causing the former to become distraught enough that it'd be over a decade after the 1-year war that Amuro would have the mental fortitude to return to space, when consumed with trauma from ending her life. Whereas it was when fixating on the loss of Lalah that Char was able to build enough of a following to quickly establish a strong leadership over Neo-Zeon. The closest thing to unified peace could also only come about with these two men's mutual destruction, with the climax of Char's counterattack inspiring many mobile suit pilots to combine their strength to stop Axis from hitting Earth. The second source to look into is one far closer to Japan, being the folklore of the Ainu that was likely inherited from their Siberian origins. The legend of Mistress Swan shares some similar ideas with Hinduism, such as their role as a divine messenger, but the difference being serving a maternal and romantic role towards the survivor of Takaisara. Leaving aside psychoanalyzing the Freudian connotations of such a dynamic, this is quite similar to Lalah's role with Char, as she serves both as a love interest and the nurturing aspect expected of a mother when it comes to the emotional development of his new type capabilities, and the sense of emotional protection which is lost along with her. Side note, it's quite interesting that such a dynamic is present in Char's counterattack, with Quest's daddy issues presenting the other side in this lack of stable parental figures. It seems difficult to unsee this as something Tomino would draw from with how infamous Char's line about Lalah as a mother is, and everything else surrounding it. The Swan in this tale is also very much a saviour figure for the boy, which seems to be how Char, as well as Amuro to some extent, come to consider Lalah after her death, with her loss changing everything for both of them. Though a small part of Char's counterattack, it's very impressive how much the imagery of Lalah and Swans tie into her character, and the origins of such symbolism provide a very consistent subtext around the events of the film. Hopefully, this will have you gain a greater appreciation for what seemed to be such a great passion project for Tomino that he sabotaged Gundam Double Zeta's narrative, or at least have allowed you to learn some interesting cultural trivia.